Hey, Chris, did you know that if the Panthers give up 37 points at least on Sunday against the Falcons, they'll have given up the most points in a single season in NFL history?
Wow. It's only because of the injuries.
There's a lot to break down with that. Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight.
Ready?
Let's huddle up.
Let's just do it, okay?
For Panthers Playbook, driven by Carolina Ford Dealers. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Leave your thoughts in the comment section going into this final game against Atlanta. And just, do you have any expectations for this game? Are you hoping that they lose to keep that top 10 pick? Right now, they're sitting at 6, Chris. But before we dive into that, the Carolina Panthers are on the road this Sunday, final game of the season. But by the way, Panthers Playbook, make sure you subscribe. Brought to you by Carolina Ford Dealers. With a Ford F-150 on your team as game on. See your Carolina Ford dealer today. Again, Falcons host the Panthers this Sunday, Chris. And I'm not going to lie, I have zero expectations going into this final game. There's still a lot of guys that are hurt. We've discussed that a bunch. But this is the first time I'm actually going into a game where, like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. I don't expect much of anything. I really don't.
I will push back a little against that and
That's
say
fair.
that not that I expect them to win or to really, really try to win, but I do want them to still try to play as competitive of a game as they possibly can.
Sure.
Because we talked about before a couple weeks ago or last week, whenever it was, about the habits and how things and momentum can carry over into the next season. Don't just roll out there and get blown out by 40 points from a team who has everything to play for and you have nothing to play for.
Yeah.
Like, go out there and actually give them a game. And if you end up getting a win, cool. That's awesome. You end the year on a high note. You take that momentum and you carry it over into the next year. If you don't win the game, but it's a competitive game, it's within a score, that's also good to me as well. Don't go out there and get blown out. Like this past week. Don't go out there and get blown out like against Dallas. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's try to leave those things in 2024. This is 2025 now.
Yeah. Let's start the new year right.
Let's start off the new year right. Even though we're ending one season, let's start off this actual 2025 right, so that when you start playing other games that count later on in 2025 in about 9 months, then there you can have that momentum to carry over. I don't want you to just go out there and just roll out. So I do have some expectation, but it's not necessarily an expectation of winning.
Yeah, I don't want this season to end like last season did, where we saw that awesome game Christmas Eve against the Green Bay Packers last season, right? And what they follow up with? On the road in Jacksonville, get blown out, and then at home against Tampa, you put up a goose egg once again. You got the win against Arizona a couple weeks ago, and then now you go into the state of Florida against Tampa Bay, get blown out, and then you're on the road against a divisional opponent. Let's not put up that goose egg, all right? Or at least let's not get blown out. That's something, I don't want this season to end like last season. I get if people want to say, hey, look, you want to keep that top 10 pick? I totally get that. We're going to have another podcast talking about that once we actually know where the Panthers are going to be picking. Looks like 6 right now, the way things are sitting. But going into this game, again, like you said, be competitive. And maybe they actually will get a boost in the run game. We also know that Chuba Hubbard is not going to be out again this week. But, hey, Miles Sanders, your boy, Chris, he's back. Your boy Miles Sanders is practicing this week coming off that ankle injury. So, I mean, at least there's going to be some sort of competency at the running back position, because we saw Raheem Blackshear couldn't follow his blockers and read the hole right, and then Mike Boone was there this past Sunday in terms of the run game.
I mean, Mike Boone, he had 11 yards and 2 carries.
Carries.
He did his thing. He just didn't get the carries.
Yeah, he just didn't get the carries.
Yes, Miles Sanders will be back. The guy who's supposed to be the starting running back is back. And it's really about Dave Canales. How patient are you going to be with the run? How much a part of that, the game plan, is that for you? We've said it just before that, we're going to be a running team. We're going to be, running the ball, and you just don't follow through on that a lot of times. And so I want to see that follow through with. I want to see Miles Sanders get 18 to 22 carries. I want to see
Especially
Mike
if it's
Boone.
going to be his last game.
Yeah,
Let's be real. It's going to be his last game in a Panther uniform.
But also, it's not even just about that and him. It's also about Bryce Young, right? Like, what's one of the best ways to help protect a quarterback outside of having a great offensive line? It's a run game.
Yeah.
And not only, and that helps him out with play action and other little wrinkles in the offense that you can kind of put out there. But like ultimately, I don't want Bryce, or any quarterback for that matter, but especially Bryce, I don't want him dropping back 40 times and passing. I really don't want to see that, and so I'm hoping that there's at least some sort of a semblance of a run game, but that has a lot to do with Dave Canales and what he decides to call in the heat of the moment.
I'm okay with Canales and being intentional, at least in terms of some of the plays that he calls and some of the plays that he designs, in terms of, hey, Xavier Legette, let's work on some of your deep routes again. Let's work on some of these things that you might be struggling with. Like, be intentional with what you're calling with some of these things. Be intentional with that. Hey, Bryce, what's a route concept that you struggle with? Is it a smash route where we go high low? Is it this deep in route? What's something that you feel like you want to really improve upon? Not like, hey, I want to get better at everything. Not that kind of thing. Like, be like, no, I actually really specifically want to work on like the deep corner route. All right, let's intentionally call some of those things. You can do that in this final game. Use it as an opportunity, even if you don't win, to still get better, especially with the guys that you're going to be bringing back, Chris.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. It's almost like a preseason game, but it's not.
Yeah.
Where you're looking. Time. Yeah, you're looking to use those reps for a critical growth within that. And so, hey, if you need to sit somebody like an Adam Thielen because you want to get him, make sure he's back for next year in the second half, so that Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette can, get more reps or whatever, I'm cool with that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever you need to do to make sure it happens. But like, just don't roll over, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, it might be like a preseason game. You're just trying to get some reps out there, but also let's be competitive at the same time. Just don't roll over.
I want them to incorporate JT Sanders more since he left the game. Since he left the game against Kansas City with a neck injury, and he was playing really good and made some really good plays in the first half of that game until he had to leave the game. Since then, I think he has one catch, if I remember correctly, because he missed the next week. They had the bye and all that stuff. Or they were coming off the bye going into that Kansas City game. But I think he literally only has one catch since he's come back. That's it. I'm like, this guy we saw at multiple games this season make some highlight plays. Yeah. Highlight plays, make some big-time contested catches where Bryce, it's like, hey, JT's down there, throw it up, He said the bleep it. And he threw it up down there, and JT Sanders made some plays. I want to see that guy get some more targets coming his way. I understand the whole thing of you got to go with the defense dictates you. Hey, you know what? Send him on a seam route and say, hey, Bryce, throw it up for him. JT, go make a play. Just like call it, just to do it. Like, that's something I want to see. Again, these young guys get more of those in this final game. Same with Jalen Coker. Work on stuff for him. Legette. These are young guys that are part of your core going forward. Make sure that you utilize those guys a ton this weekend.
Dan Tresina, honestly. Like,
yeah,
hey,
why not, right?
That guy's been stepping up.
Dude, he was a track star. Hey, Dan, go deep. Bryce, chuck it up. Just do it. Call it once just to see what happens.
To go back to what you're saying with JT Sanders, a lot of that is not his fault. Sometimes it's also like where the quarterback is looking. And, I don't know, whether it's, on this particular route concept, this isn't the first or second read. And after, of course, it was the 2.43 seconds or whatever that Canales wants him to get the ball out in. So within that amount of time, maybe he can get over to him. I watch quarterback school whenever I can with JT O'Sullivan. The last time I watched was the performance after the Cardinals win. Yeah. And there's a time or two, especially one time in the end zone, that JT Sanders, if the ball's thrown his way, more than likely he was going to catch that thing. And one particular time I'm referring to would have been a touchdown.
It was a slant route. He was lined up in the slot, and I think he threw it to Thielen in the corner.
He threw it over to Thielen. And so that was – so sometimes it also comes down to, who does Bryce trust? And also, like, what's the read on this particular play? So, I don't know if there's ways that Canales can work in, Sanders being one of the top reads in a particular play. So Bryce can look to his side a little bit more, or, just whatever it needs to happen with that. But that's also a big part of it. It's not that my man's not running the routes. It's not that he's not getting open. Sometimes he just needs the opportunity. And so whatever happened in that Kansas City game, he was just there all the time and right in front of Bryce's face. And he seems to be really good on the scramble drill. So, I don't know. Maybe they'll get a chance to see that again as well. But I just wanted to bring that up really quick when it comes down to him. I'm not throwing him out. A lot of fans are throwing out Xavier Legette. I'm not throwing him out.
It's too early, guys.
Legette didn't have a bad game this past week. He had some balls tipped in front of him. And, there's one pass, I guess, with the angle, it looked like he missed it, but it was thrown too far out in front of him. So he couldn't reach for it in the first half. So,
I think he broke more upfield. Bryce kind of put it more to the outside. It was on a scramble where Bryce had to roll out. Again, that's just kind of like familiarity type thing.
Right.
Does it concern you, Chris? I want to ask you this. We know that Adam Thielen is old reliable for Bryce.
Emphasis on old.
And reliable. But at some point, Thielen ain't going to be there. He has one more year left on his contract, and there's no guarantee, obviously, that he's going to be back next year. I think he should be. Again, because of his reliability.
Oh boy!
But you can tell at different times throughout last season and this season, when Bryce is on the field and he needs something, he's looking at 19. Does it concern you that he hasn't gotten that with someone else yet? Is that concerning you yet? But again, a lot of his other receivers are rookie Jalen Coker, rookie Xavier Legette, rookie JT Sanders.
Yep.
So again, it's going to take a little bit of time, but
first year David Moore.
But first year with David
with
Moore.
the Panthers. Yeah,
exactly. So does that concern you going forward that he's just like locked in on one guy?
If I think circumstantially I don't know if circumstantially is a
we'll go with it.
word.
We'll go with it.
With the circumstances, I'm not concerned. If Bryce played the entire year, right, without being sat down at one point, if Coker, essentially like he made the initial 53, but then he was on the practice squad for a little bit, then he was brought up. And then by the time
after Thielen got hurt when Bryce was benched.
And so Bryce was benched. And so by the time Bryce gets back, he's starting to try to get to know this guy. And then it may have been a situation when the Bryce was the one, Coker probably wasn't catching a lot from him because he was a little bit further down. And so these two are still trying to get their groove together.
And don't forget, Coker got hurt, had the quad injury and missed the stretch too.
And then he also missed, it was like 3 games that he missed. Yeah. So I think all of that has something to do with it. Next year, I don't know if I think Bryce went somewhere to throw at folks. I think it was a bigger deal his first year where they went to SMU. He threw with, what's my man's name that we sent packing, number 88, Terrace Marshall.
Oh, Terrace Marshall. Oh yeah.
Terrace Marshall and a couple others. They went out to SMU. I want to see that with Bryce. Like, you're not going to get the April practices this year because you don't have a new head coach, or at least we don't expect there to be a new head coach. Never know what Dave Tepper is going to do, but you don't expect there to be a new head coach. So you're going to meet back up in March for OTAs and minicamp. I'm sorry, in May, excuse me. Take some of that extra time after that, like when you have your breaks in between, to just get on the same page. Just throw with the guys, call the concepts. We know for sure that 2 of those guys will be back next year, and let's include 3 with Jadeveon Sanders, right? And then just throw in Chuba Hubbard in there. Hopefully we have 5 with Adam Thielen coming back, and there you have like a core of 5 guys. Like, we need to get together to make sure we're on the same page with these things. What do you prefer? How do you prefer me to get this to you? If this is called, how do you prefer to run this? Or if the defense is showing you this, how would you run the route in that particular situation? Those things that you may not necessarily get a chance to really work on during the season because you're game planning for the next team. Maybe, you get a little bit of chance, but you're figuring out some other things. Now you can really get the chance to know these guys and get on the same page. Injuries and other things kind of, I think, took that away. So I'm not concerned yet. If we get into next year, though, and Adam Thielen is still the number one, that makes me concerned not only for Bryce, not only for the guys backing him up, but for the front office. Because why didn't you 2 years now?
Yeah.
2 years. Why didn't you get somebody that could actually become the number one over Adam Thielen? We said he's probably best as a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, I'd say a 3. I'd say honestly a 3. Let's be real.
You thought DJ Chark was going to be the guy. He wasn't. You know what I'm saying? I guess you essentially drafted Legette to be that. Maybe he can step up to be that guy.
Maybe.
But he's just not ready this year. And he's not bad. I'm not in that camp that hates Legette. I don't understand that part. I really don't understand those people. But, you know, we're going to have to look at the front office is going to have to do something and add in another little wrinkle into that wide receiver group as well.
Yeah, they need someone that they can stretch the field with in terms of a wide receiver for sure. They need like a Ted Ginn with like consistent good hands. It's kind of what they need in terms of like the speed and the vertical threat. They need Ted Ginn with Adam Thielen's route running and hands. That's what they blended the two together. You have a pretty good, number one receiver, I would say. Just a little callback for the Panther fans out there. But they do, I think that's something that over time, and I think also going into this offseason, I think it's going to be beneficial for all those guys knowing exactly what this offense is going to be next season. Again, assuming David Tepper doesn't do anything crazy and fires Canales. But Bryce and the offense, these guys are going to know the core concepts of what they're going to do. Yes, they can tweak and refine, but in the offseason, it's going to be beneficial for Bryce knowing these things. Because remember, last year there was the disaster. That's all you got to say it was. So again, this is first year of Bryce in this offense, understanding it. Same with those other guys. Hopefully, again, they can grow in it together.
This week, does the defense give up the most points ever?
God, I hope not. I hope not. Because that's the thing. It's like, you know what? People are going to sit there and say, no one cares about your injuries. I know they've dealt with them a bunch this season. No one's going to care. No one's going to care. They're going to look at the scoreboard because that's ultimately at the end of the day what matters is what the scoreboard says.
Listen.
That's all that matters. At the end of the day, what does the scoreboard say?
There's a lot of excuses being made. People will say, hey, there's injuries. We should cut somebody some slack because of that. And, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
To an extent, I get it. However, in the 30 years that the Carolina Panthers have been around, this is the year where they're pushing for another one of those years. They're pushing for a record, right? And not in a good way, right? You said we're 37 points away from giving up the most all time in the season. That's not a good thing. And did you know what year that was? I would venture to believe that that's probably 2010, maybe.
In NFL history, I can't remember exactly, but yeah.
Oh, I thought it was NFL history. I thought it was Panthers history. Okay. Oh, so they've already given up the most for Panthers history already.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, shoot, we're past that then. So NFL history. So take away the Panthers 30 years and all the years of the NFL with all the teams involved. You don't think there's been another defensive coordinator who's had a lot of injuries on the defensive side, who's lost some of their top guys, and they still were able to get teams off the field on third down because of what they have? Like, come on, man. Like, at some point, you got to stop making excuses for somebody.
Yeah.
At some point, you just got to stop making, because all the excuses are there. You can have the excuse from last year. You can have excuses from this year and all that. If it's not happening, that's all I got to say.
Yeah. So
I love when people are employed. I don't like to call for people's jobs, but
the most points allowed in a game, in a single season history is 533 by the Colts back in 1981. Ooh. Now, again, those are 16 game schedule. But in terms of points per game, 6th worst in the NFL history at 31 points per game. The only ones that are worse than them, the 1966 Giants, the 1963 Broncos, those 1981 Colts that I mentioned, the Lions of 2020, and the Lions of 2008. That's
okay.
It.
At first, I was going to say no modern teams, but okay, the Lions.
Yeah, Lions of 2020.
Hey, Lions got it turned around, baby.
Look where they are now,
Lions
though.
got it turned around, baby.
Let's go.
Lions got it turned around.
It's amazing how the Lions are the model what the Panthers need to be. Who would have thought? Again,
down to the blue and the big cat and everything. Empty stadium, all that. We can bring it back instead of having Big
run it
Sean doing all the performances. We need to have the baby doing a
Exactly.
Thursday night Thanksgiving performance right there. Get everybody excited right there
Let's
on the field
go.
in Charlotte.
Carolina Ford Dealer, your sponsor here of Panthers Playbook with the Ford F-150 on your team. It's game on. See your Carolina Ford dealer today. Chris, Happy New Year once again to you, sir.
2025, here we are.
Let's go. Let's
get live.
Let's kick this season off right.
2025.
We'll see you guys on Sunday.